Hi y'all, welcome to my channel. This is the Survivor's Guide to Life. My name is Jessica Lang and this channel is dedicated to all things trauma, the brain, and healing. So if that's your jam, click that subscribe button now so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And while you're at it, jump over to Instagram. Follow me over there on Instagram, where the focus is still on trauma, on healing the brain, but also other mental health related topics, self-care, building self-esteem, having more confidence, etc., etc. Today is the final video on my Unpacking the DSM PTSD edition series. The past few videos I have been diving deep into the DSM, focusing on post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and the different symptoms that a person with a PTSD diagnosis might have, and tips and tools to help you if you are. So in today's video, I'm going to focus on probably the largest category, which is category D. Now this is specifically for post-traumatic stress disorder in adults. So for category D, this is what it says. Negative alterations in cognitions and mood associated with the traumatic event or events, beginning or worsening after the traumatic event or events have occurred, as evidenced by two or more of the following. Number one, inability to remember an important aspect of the traumatic event or events, typically due to dissociative amnesia and not to other factors such as head injury, alcohol, or drugs. Number two, persistent and exaggerated negative beliefs or expectations about oneself, others, or the world. Examples include, I am bad, no one can be trusted, the world is completely dangerous, my whole nervous system is permanently ruined. Number three, persistent, distorted cognitions about the cause or consequences of the traumatic event or events that lead the individual to blame himself or herself or others. Number four, persistent negative emotional state. Examples include fear, horror, anger, guilt, or shame. Number five, markedly diminished interest or participation in significant activities. Number six, feelings of detachment or estrangement from others. And number seven, persistent inability to experience positive emotions. Examples, inability to experience happiness, satisfaction, or loving feelings. One of the reasons I say that for last is because I feel like it's so important, and it also is one of the categories that takes the longest in the healing process. Because you've experienced a trauma such as one of the abuses, like physical abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect. These traumas are at the hands of somebody else. So it makes sense that you would have a distorted view, or you would feel like the world is an unsafe place, or that people cannot be trusted and people are out to hurt you, because that's your experience of people. And we'll add on what I've been talking about through this whole video series about the brain. One of the brain's jobs is to assess for threat. And so if people have been a threat for you throughout your childhood, throughout your life, then your brain is going to focus solely on, okay, people are threats. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. What are the indications that this belief is true? And that is one of those things that the brain, it just does in general. You have a belief and you go out and you look for ways in which to substantiate your already held beliefs. And so it can be a big challenge to kind of unpack that, to take a step back and to actually challenge those negative beliefs. And that's why therapy is so powerful, with the right therapist, obviously, and also positive relationships with loved ones, with people you care about, who give you a different experience. And that can be very hard to, and very scary to go and trust somebody else, because again, that hasn't been your experience. Your experience has been that people have let you down. So to go into relationships, you're going to have some of that fear. You're going to have some of that anxiety. You're going to question whether the person's going to be someone you can trust. And it takes time. And that's the other thing, is like, you didn't develop PTSD overnight. PTSD developed as an adaptation based off of your past experiences. So that comes with time. So just like it took time. And the part that's hard is like, you develop these skills without thinking about them. So part of the healing process is that you're actually having to actively think about doing things different. You're going to have to actively start checking in with your body, getting used to your body, like learning your body, not being so afraid of your body, right? And knowing what different sensations mean and how you can respond to them. It all takes a lot of that cognitive functioning that can be very hard, and it can seem, it can be just very hard and very exhausting, because when we're children, we don't have to think about these things. We're not thinking about the messages that are being taught to us. They're just being taught to us, and we're just absorbing them. So as you're healing, you're actively doing the work, and you're actually thinking about things. So it can be very hard and it can be very exhausting, but it's also very powerful, and it can be done. And that's where the change happens. You don't have to be stuck in this kind of worldview of everybody's bad, everything's horrible, I'm a bad person, because that's just not true. And I know that the negative beliefs and the experiences that you've had in your past lead you to believe that those things are true. But this is the process. This is healing. You're going to actively change that, and you're going to surround yourself with people who uplift you, who truly see who you are, who value you in the way that you deserve, in a healthy and a safe, nurturing, loving way. I always talk about that because I think it's so important. Now I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how you can start to systematically and slowly change this category, change these negative beliefs you have about yourself, to change that negative emotional state, feeling like everything is all bad, and help you experience, or at least recognize when you are experiencing, because this is one thing that people often don't realize. They do have times where they experience happiness or they experience joy, but they don't tap into it, or they don't recognize it because it's surrounded by a cloud of all the horrible things that are around them or in their past. So here are a couple of tips and tricks that I have that I use with my clients that I hope will help you on your journey to healing and recovery from PTSD, specifically related about how you see yourself and how you see others, and just feeling more connected. Tip number 1, develop affirmations. I know I've said it in other videos. I know it also sounds incredibly corny and trite, but trust me, it works. So an affirmation is a statement, right? A belief you have about yourself. Because you're so constantly focused on all the bad or all the things you do wrong. Having an affirmation, listing out your strengths, what you do well, how you see yourself, and you can, if you really just have no idea how you see yourself or have any positive things you can say about yourself, find people in your life who you trust or who support you in any way, and ask them, what do they see? What do they notice? What are the things that they like about yourself? And you develop an affirmation, something like, I am worthy. I like to have about 3. So like 3 to 5. I am worthy. I am smart. I am beautiful. Whatever you value. Things that are positive. And every morning when you wake up, or before you as you're getting ready, you look at yourself in the mirror, look at yourself in the eye, and you say them. And you say the affirmations. You say it every day. And every night before you go to bed, as part of like your bedtime routine, I talked about having, and I'll link an article that I wrote down below about good sleep hygiene. But what part of your ritual for good sleep hygiene will be saying an affirmation as you're going to bed. So saying these positive statements about yourself. You can also say things like, I am safe. I can take care of myself. I love myself. I know how to nurture myself. I deserve nurturing. I deserve love. Like statements like that don't just encompass your strengths, but also encompass things that you want, things that you deserve, things that express positive self-worth. So you say them twice a day, and what happens is over time you start to actually believe them. So they go from like, I'm just saying them because, my therapist said so, or this was a recommendation, I don't really believe them, to you start to actually believe it. And things in your environment, interactions you have with other people, are times when you've like stood up for yourself. If that's something you're working on, you say, I am strong, and then you notice, hey, today I stood up for myself. You'll start to notice those positive ways in which you show up in the world and the positive impact you have on others, all because you started saying these affirmations, and you start to believe them, and your confidence shifts, right? Your behavior shifts. So that's why affirmations are so powerful, and they take time. It's not going to be like you did it for 30 days and now you're cured. And also on top of that, it's completely normal for your self-esteem to kind of be triggered or shift depending on situation. So like maybe you're in an environment or you're at a job which is a little bit toxic, and you're finding yourself having a lot of negative interactions with coworkers, and you start to feel like question your self-worth. that's even more when the affirmations are going to be so powerful, because oftentimes people come with their own stuff, their own baggage, and they might treat you in a disrespectful manner. And that doesn't mean that you deserve to be disrespected. That just means that that person has really bad social skills, or they're a terrible coworker, right? Like they don't know how to communicate properly. There's all kinds of reasons that don't have anything to do with you as to why people behave the way that they behave. But it would make sense that like in those situations, your self-esteem might feel a little triggered, or you might feel it go down a little bit in response to something that's happened. So that's normal. Just wanted to speak to that piece on how, you know, nobody all the time 100% is like, I feel amazing about myself. That's just not how people act. So we go through parts in our life where we do question ourselves, or we question our self-worth. It's when it becomes toxic, or when it's a continuous, you know, I don't feel good about myself, you know, I'm no good, and all the negative things you say about yourself. You behave in ways that allow, for lack of a better word, others to mistreat you. So people might be walking all over you, or you're, you know, in a domestic violence situation or something like that. You kind of get what I'm saying. So if it's just kind of like a questioning, or a noticing, and the fact that you notice like, oh, I feel kind of low about myself, that's when you really pick back up with those affirmations and know that it can change, and you don't always have to feel that way. Tip number 2, I talk about it all the time because it works, but I am going to preach journaling and or video recording, audio recording, your moods, your feelings, all of it, your day. One of the main reasons I really like journaling is that it gets the information, it gets the feelings out of your head and onto paper, where you don't have to hold it, you don't have to carry it. You had a really bad argument with your partner, and you still feel very frustrated and angry, and you know, when we're angry, we tend to say hurtful things. And so maybe journaling that out, getting all those hurt feelings, getting all that anger out on paper, so you're not then going to that person and calling them all kinds of names and being disrespectful, and, you know, saying things that you can't take back and can really mess up the relationship. You get that energy out, you get those feelings out on paper, so that you can then start to process and think clearly, okay, this is what's going on for myself, this is what I need to do, this is how I can ask for what I need. Then you can come back to your partner with a more clear head and a more calm voice, so that you guys can have a positive reconciliation. So that's one of the big things about journaling, or like I said, audio recording, just to get those feelings out. You can also use exercise in that way. Some people, exercise doesn't work for them. So I like to, in this category, do exercise or journaling as a way of just getting that energy out. And I've talked about it before with the stress response system. You know, we get stressed, we feel a certain way, it plateaus, we come back down to our baseline. That's the resolution, that's the natural cycle of things. But especially when we have trauma, that process gets interrupted. As we're coming back down, trying to return to the baseline, it gets interrupted by something else, another event. And your feelings act in the same way. You're upset about something, and then rather than just allowing yourself to fully experience those feelings because they're scary, or you're afraid that you're going to be depressed and sad forever, or you're afraid that you're going to really do something horrible with your anger, you stop it. You cut it at its knees. You try to put a happy spin on it. You never allow for it to get out, so it ends up just building until you do explode like a volcano. And because you've held on to it for so long, and if you have a pattern of holding on to your emotions and your feelings for so long, then that can be why you have those really huge outbursts. And that can be, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, because you're afraid of these big emotions that you have, because you've experienced feeling out of control with them in the past, you want to hold them at bay. By actually holding them at bay, that's what's leading to the big explosions that are happening for you. Whether that's crying fits, or you're, you know, going off on somebody, or you're completely dissociating and you're losing track of time. These examples that I've given you are pretty big ones that most people experience, and they relate to the fight, flight, freeze response. So you can check out another video. I'll link it down below, where I talk specifically about the brain's development and the stress response system, and I go a little bit more into fight, flight, freeze. And so you can kind of see how your emotions and how your big emotions mimic some of those can mimic the fight, flight, freeze response. What about for number 3? Number 3 is to incorporate a mindfulness or mindfulness-like routine in your daily schedule, so that you're noticing the different shifts that are happening. You're noticing when you're happy, you're noticing when you're sad, you're noticing when you're angry. So it's drawing attention to what's happening in your inner world, in your inner space, noticing when different arousal states, when you're feeling afraid, when you're feeling calm. You're just going about noticing what's going on. You're not trying to change it, you're not trying to fix it, you're just noticing. This will help with that feeling like you never feel happy, or why am I always so angry? Because you'll start to notice that actually there are times when you do feel happiness, and there's times when you feel joy. I always tell people, emotions are temporary. Nobody feels one way forever. Happiness is a continuum. Anger is it's all fluid. They're all in continuums. And so part of having trauma is having this black and white thinking where everything feels like it has to be very extreme. And I think people feel that way about emotions, and it's a myth. It all happens on a continuum. You could be having a great day and just be feeling content. You might have some flashes of anger, frustration, but that's normal. That's typical. Overall, you'd look on your day and say, oh, it was a good day, it was a chill day, or it was a regular day, or it was an average day, whatever word you want to use. But there's also glimpses in that day where the sun might be shining, and it might just hit you that right way and feel. I mean, I'm a sun person, sorry. I like to be hot and warm. So when the sun hits me in a certain way, my body feels just so good. I'm like the vitamin D and all of that drama. Like, it feels so nice, and I feel happy. I feel good. I'm in a positive mood. Like, it lifts my mood to sit in the sun. And do some work, and I feel more creative. I feel this burst of energy. You know what I mean? So noticing the different ways in which you feel your environment, noticing what happens when you drink coffee in the morning, or noticing, when you had a really great meal, how that feels. That's all you're doing. Just taking note, mental note, checking in with yourself of how you are feeling. Will give you a better glimpse, a better idea, a bigger picture of what's going on for you overall. And you'll start to notice, oh yeah, I don't see everything so negative. My final tip will be specifically addressing when you just don't feel like you are enjoying activities like you used to. This is also one of the cornerstones of depression. So I would also look at, whether you're experiencing any type of depression, and if that's going on. I mean, that's very common to see PTSD and depression co-occurring at the same time. But knowing that, not being like, let's say you used to love tennis, you had this horrible trauma happen, and now you don't enjoy tennis anymore. This is like the perfect tip to go after what I just talked about in terms of just being more mindful of what's going on in your day-to-day. Is, even if you're not, we call it the faking it till you make it. Pick up that tennis racket and hit the court. Maybe start off slow, picking up your racket, getting a ball, and going to the playground and hitting up against the wall, as opposed to like calling somebody and trying to do tennis with a friend, because maybe you're not up for the social interaction that goes along with the tennis. But being able to just hit the ball against the wall, and as you're doing it, checking in with how you're feeling. What is that experience like for you, hitting that ball? How are you, do you feel a release of energy? Do you feel more tired? Like, what is going on for you? Just checking in with your body, checking in with your mind, checking in with your feelings, and staying present as you're hitting that ball. So I just use tennis as an example, but this can be used for any hobby that you used to enjoy, or maybe a hobby that you've always been curious about, and you've tried, but you felt like I don't really enjoy this, or maybe kind of some of that trauma stuff was coming up for you, so you were like, I don't really like this. Try it again. Pick it up. Check in with yourself as you're doing it. So start off doing, if it's something, start off doing it solo, and giving yourself 5 minutes or giving yourself 10 minutes, and just go with it and see what's going on for yourself as you're doing it, and see if over time there's a shift, and that you're actually noticing that you're enjoying it more. Like, maybe you have to give yourself permission to enjoy this activity, right? That's the other thing that many folks struggle with, is like, we feel like we don't deserve good things, if you're having a bad day, or it's a low self-esteem day, or whatever, and that ties into like, I'm not enjoying this activity anymore. So really looking at all aspects of what's going on in your life, being more present, being more in tune with yourself, that'll give you more information about what's going on. And you'll find that that's, it's all part of the healing journey, and that some days are going to be harder than others, but that you are a survivor, and that you are safe and you are okay, and you can find that contentment, you can find that peace, and you can find that happiness. So I hope this video was helpful. Comment down below, let me know what you thought about this video. What do you think about PTSD in general? What are some of the things that you're struggling with, and that you would like some help or some clarification on that maybe I didn't cover? Comment down below, let's have a conversation. So that's it for the Unpacking the DSM PTSD edition. I hope you liked the series, and I will catch you guys tomorrow for the next video.